Okay, so this is the math formulas chapter of my book. Um, and I just want to go over some updates. It's literally the same formula sheets as like my previous book, like my ACT and my other SAT book for the paper version. It's just like I said before, the distribution of the problems is a little bit different, and like specific things that you need to know are just slightly different. Like literally, like one thing changed or two things changed with like the actual content that you need to know. That's why the notes haven't changed. I'm just going to let you know what you don't need to know specifically for the digital SAT and what might be like more likely to show up, if that makes sense. So like this first page, I would still say is the most important because that's how I ordered it before. Like this would be an accumulation of like the top 20 formulas that I would recommend, or like top 20 kind of like note things that I would recommend that you memorize for this exam. And you'll see like it makes sense because like a lot of the geometry stuff is on here, or like the special right triangles, midpoint, distance, like equation of a circle. Like a lot of the basics are here that you should remember, especially like the linear stuff, that sort of thing. So this is the most important page. It goes from like most to least important, pretty much. So like that's the most important. And then after that, I would do this page. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is I teach percent change a little bit differently. So the reason it says this formula is because I teach my students that after they get to this, that they need to turn it into they need to do that thing with the percent and decimals where you move it over by two spaces. But if you want a formula that just always works, to just find the percent change, just remember to multiply this by 100. If you don't want to like remember that extra step of you have to move the decimal for whatever you get here 2 to the right. So that's the only thing that I want to mention is a little bit different from how other teachers do things, but everything else is pretty consistent. And let's see, there was one thing that you don't need to know anymore for the exam. I'm trying to find it. Did I skip it? Nope, I did not. So, one thing that you don't need to know for the exam now, for the digital SAT, is this complex number stuff. Don't need to know that, so you can cross that out. Also, probability, or you do need to know that it's not the probability part. It was the sequences thing that I wanted to talk about as well. So sequences, I previously put that this was ACT only, and technically it is, because the way that they'll ask sequences on the digital SAT exam is something that doesn't require you to know like these formulas. The way they're going to ask it is like in a word problem format with like a pattern that you can easily recognize or something like that. Nothing where you have to like really use these formulas. Technically, they could ask you anything on these exams, but like technically they could require that, but it's not showing up from what I've seen in anything in so far in what they've released of the digital like resources and practice exams. It's only showing up in like basic word problem format where you wouldn't need to like memorize these formulas. So something like maybe they tell you that like you add 3 each time in a list of numbers, and the first number is like, they'll obviously write incomplete sentences and they'll say like the first number is 5, what's the third number, something like that. But like they'll obviously add like a couple filler words in between there, but something that's like easy like that, like you could figure it out by just reading the problem. You don't need like a big old formula for that. But everything else that says like ACT only, like the logarithm stuff, like things like that, where I put ACT only, that still applies. So the only sort of exception now is what I've mentioned. But I would still memorize all these in the order that I've listed them in this book. So, yep, that is pretty much it. Now move on to whatever chapter you're supposed to be doing now based off of your how you analyzed your diagnostic.